Kpop is a young woman who suffers from social anxiety. Her face is perpetually blank, like a piece of wood, which often leads to customer complaints. Seeing a child burst into tears in front of her out of fear, Kpop becomes flustered and doesn't know what to do. Kpop works at a hair salon. When customers see her looking gloomy, they often ask other staff members if she's upset about something. This situation is noticed by the manager. She immediately calls Kpop into the break room and gives her a severe scolding. The manager says that although hairdressing is a technical skill, it's also a service industry, and she absolutely shouldn't show a gloomy attitude in front of customers. Seeing that Kpop still shows no change, the manager can only walk away, feeling helpless. As for Kpop, she can only nervously bite her nails. When she gets home, thinking about her manager's advice, Kpop decides to change herself. She takes out her phone, plays a video, and starts practicing how to smile. However, the noise from her practice disturbs her neighbors next door, causing them to yell at her to be quiet. The next day at work, Kpop's forced, awkward smile makes a coworker who has just walked in jump in surprise. Feeling her coworker constantly staring at her with strange looks, Kpop feels incredibly discouraged. After changing into her uniform, she goes to see her coworker and explains that she was just trying to smile at her. If there's anything she can improve, she will continue to try her best. As a result, everyone gives her the same advice. Her bangs cover her eyes, making her look gloomy. Kpop then takes a pair of scissors and cuts her own bangs. However, her unconventional bangs are criticized by a stylist named Kwang-soo. He says that her current hairstyle doesn't suit her. He then tells her to sit down and proceeds to work on her hair with his scissors. Kpop's new bangs receive high praise from her coworkers. They say that with such a pretty face, she should have cut her bangs long ago. But Kpop feels like a clown. She takes off her cape, runs into the restroom, looks at herself in the mirror, and feels incredibly frustrated. In her heart, she thinks that Kwang-soo cut them even worse than she did. At this moment, Kpop feels like she's been struck by lightning. The way everyone is looking at her makes her feel suffocated. This only makes her more insecure and withdrawn. When facing customers, she doesn't dare to speak up, and just stands there muttering quietly for over 10 minutes. Finally, a coworker appears, drawing the customer's attention and saving her. This scene is witnessed by a female coworker. She thinks that Kpop has been acting strangely since she started working at the salon. Regardless of her personality, Kpop is also in the category of brain dead. Because the new bangs make her uncomfortable, Kpop is in a daze all day at work, even mixing up customers. The manager sees this and just wants to beat her to death. At lunchtime, the manager deliberately asks Kpop when the new hair dye will arrive. She still answers quietly, as always. The manager gets angry, tells her to speak louder, and criticizes that changing her hairstyle is useless when her personality is still so gloomy. A stylist named Zen speaks up in Kpop's defense, blaming Kwang-soo for giving her new bangs, which makes her hesitate when speaking at work. Kwang-soo argues that, whether it's the shape, length, or texture, the current hairstyle is perfectly suitable for Kpop, flawless to the point where there is nothing to criticize. Zen retorts, saying that it's because of this kind of attitude that Kwang-soo doesn't have any regular customers. It doesn't matter if he thinks it's beautiful if the customer doesn't like it. Seeing the two arguing because of her, Kpop feels extremely guilty. She apologized to everyone, then sadly left. Upon arriving home, Kpop recalled the instructions from the vocational school principal. Whether in a restaurant or a company, one must always smile, act politely, and actively initiate conversations with customers. This is how to create a good impression. At that moment, Kpop mustered all her courage. She didn't want to give up on her beloved hairdressing profession. This time, she was determined to change and show a completely new side of herself. Kpop wanted to overcome her fear of interacting with customers. Her male colleague, Muyol, advised her to look directly at customers and smile, which would show goodwill. If she kept having that stern look, customers would soon be scared away. Kpop found Muyol's advice to be very reasonable, so she decided to try staring at customers to show goodwill. However, this action made customers feel uncomfortable, which she didn't realize, and continued to stare. This made customers upset, and they wanted to ask for a different stylist. Gi BBM felt helpless and could only run to a corner in the storage room to quietly endure. After adjusting her mood, she returned to work. An elderly woman asked her for a wet towel, then bent down in front of her. Gi BBM didn't understand but followed her request. It turned out that there was hair dye on her forehead, and the kind old woman wanted to help wipe it off with a wet towel. Seeing the customer caring for her like that, Gi BBM couldn't hold back her tears, which started flowing down her face. She rushed out of the salon and stood by the corner of the wall, sobbing because she couldn't control her emotions. After the salon closed, Gi BBM cleaned up with a heavy heart. She felt that perhaps she wasn't really suited for this job and intended to talk to the manager to resign. But before she could say anything, the manager saw right through her intentions. The manager immediately changed the subject, offering to take everyone out for dinner. When they arrived at the restaurant, an awkward situation occurred that embarrassed everyone. The private room they had reserved was a low seating room. This was a problem because hairdressers often worked standing for long periods, and their feet were often smelly. Therefore, they usually avoided places where they had to take off their shoes. The smell of their feet was so strong that the waitstaff almost fainted. During dinner, everyone encouraged Gi BBM, hoping she could overcome her social anxiety. Hairdressing is a service profession. One has to interact with many people every day. Moreover, in a year, she would become a full-fledged hairdresser. If she was still hesitant and mumbling by that time, how would she get any customers? Her colleagues teased her, which only made Gi BBM silently drink her wine. After the party, the manager worried that Gi BBM would get into trouble if she was drunk, so he asked Muyol to take her home. Although unwilling, when he saw a drunk man trying to sit next to Gi BBM, he kindly sat down next to her to protect her. Gi BBM asked Muyol if she was really useless, not even having the courage to talk loudly to customers. She praised him for being skilled and knowing how to talk to customers. It turned out that Muyol had exchanged phone numbers with a customer before they left. Gi BBM witnessed this, which made him embarrassed, and he cursed himself for being so careless. At the same time, he told Gi BBM not to tell the manager about this at all. The next day, after work, Gi BBM walked home alone. She saw a street performer performing and, gathering all her courage, she stepped onto the stage to introduce herself. Then, she sang a song off-key, which made the surrounding audience immediately lose interest and look down at their phones. This scene caught Muyol's eye. He smiled because he saw her finally stepping out of her comfort zone and overcoming her social anxiety. He believed that if she kept working hard, she would certainly succeed. Gi BBM bravely approached the customer, speaking in her loudest voice yet. "Excuse me, ma'am's here, please have a seat." The customer felt like their hair was splitting at the ends, and wanted to ask if there were any effective treatment methods. However, Gi BBM said, "It's not necessary right now." This scene made the manager restless. The manager quickly called Gi BBM over, instructing her to market products to the customer. He said, "Only when the shop's business improves will everyone get a bonus." However, Gi BBM had a social anxiety disorder. Standing next to the customer, she stammered, unable to say a word. The manager had to quickly step in, promptly introducing the shop's hair care service packages. He also mentioned that a 20% discount would be applied if 6 sessions were purchased at once. The customer immediately agreed to sign up for the package. Towards such a cheerful customer, the manager felt a little incredulous but promptly proceeded to register the customer. At lunchtime, Gi BBM planned to go out to buy food. Just as she stepped out of the shop, she encountered some strangers. They asked Gi BBM to call Muyol out to help, saying that they were his friends. But when Gi BBM called Muyol out, she saw those people chasing after him. She thought to herself, "Did I cause trouble?" Having not finished buying her food, upon returning to the shop, Gi BBM still couldn't find Muyol. She then asked Kwang Soo if he had seen him. Kwang Soo told her to serve customers first.